Hello from the European Parliament in Brussels. You are watching Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Now, it is 3 years since the number of people seeking to come into the EU hit a major spike in 2015. That was the year that Germany took in more than 1 million people. Fences were put up in certain parts of Europe. The Schengen Free Movement Agreement was partially suspended. 3 years on, the case of a charity rescue ship in the Mediterranean, the Aquarius, has thrown a new spotlight on the fact that Europe still has not come up with a coherent continent-wide answer. Italy refused to let the Aquarius dock at its port, saying the country's full. France's President Macron got into a war of words with the Italian Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Angela Merkel has been plunged into a crisis with her government partner party, the CSU, over migration policy. So then, can Europe get it together over migration? With the clock counting down to a potential showdown at the European Council summit at the end of June, we are debating the issue today with French MEP from the movement Génération, Isabelle Thomas. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Hello.
Italian MEP Tiziana Beghin from the Five Star Movement. Hello there.
Thank you for inviting me.
And from Germany, MEP Godelieve Quisthout-Rowohl, who is with Angela Merkel's CDU party. Thank you for your time.
Hello.
Well, first then, we talked about the fact that this is encompassing many countries here in Europe. Emmanuel Macron and Germany's Angela Merkel, particularly at the heart of the debate over where this might go next. They met just a few days ago. With a report on what happened, here's Brian Quinn.
Seeking a European response to the migrant crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel calling for a joint plan for Europe's flashpoint challenge in their meeting Tuesday. Among necessary measures, according to the two leaders, action in migrants' countries of origin and in transit countries like Libya, but also a reinforcement of the EU's border.
We support the proposals of the European Commission, particularly in significantly augmenting the resources of the Frontex agency, up to 10,000 men, and deploying these support resources to the countries that manage the outer borders of Europe.
In the meantime, France and Germany want deals that would allow member states to reject at their borders asylum seekers who are already registered in other EU countries, to avoid overwhelming countries like Germany that have been first-choice destinations for migrants.
Anyone can request asylum in Europe, but we must coordinate the standards by which we grant asylum. And one must be able to arrive in any Schengen country without being able to choose one country to the detriment of another.
The Italian government's recent refusal to allow a rescue ship packed with migrants to dock in Sicily has heightened tensions around what frontline countries like Greece and Italy see as a lack of solidarity from their EU neighbors to share the burden as waves of migrants have poured into Europe over recent years. But Merkel has faced increasing pressure at home over her decision to allow some 1 million migrants into Germany during the 2015 influx. Her own interior minister has in recent days threatened to unilaterally impose harsh border controls against Merkel's wishes, potentially setting off a parliamentary crisis. An EU-wide summit on migration is set for the end of June.
There we go, one of the latest updates on this, politically speaking. I mentioned that all of this came out of Italy refusing to take in that ship, the Aquarius. So I'd like to come to you first, Tiziana Beghin, as an Italian MEP with the Five Star Movement in the Italian government. Is Italy effectively trying to strong-arm Europe into taking some action, refusing to take this boat in and creating a crisis?
Yes, actually, it was a very provocatory signal that we gave to Europe. And actually, it raised the debate even more than in the past. And we did it in completely safe way. And Mr. Salvini did it in a very big, strong way, but with taking into account the safety of people in the ship.
Well, some people did die during the transfers from the Aquarius onto the Coast Guard boats.
But the situation was very safe. We asked also to Aquarius to have medical assistance, to have to take into in care for children or women that have problems, and no answer were given in the first time. So this was the case. But what was really important is that we gave the signal that Italy is no more available to have all the migrants that came from Africa to Europe, and that also the other countries have to take into account this phenomenon and to have their responsibility. They do not show in the last months and the last period to have the same interest in this phenomenon. Also, the case of France that showed a strong opposition at the border of Ventimiglia or Bardonecchia, also
the
the case
south coast of
in
France.
Spain that has been yes. So every country has their own responsibility, and it's time that they have, because it is very easy to speak, and we listen to many declarations of solidarity, but in the real fact, Italy was left alone in the last period.
Well, in that case, OK, so you said it was a deliberately provocative act designed to create a crisis. It did provoke the French President, Emmanuel Macron. Is it fair to say that France has not shown solidarity with migrants? It certainly hasn't taken in as many as Italy or Germany.
Point, but I think it's not a question of country. Question is, it's political question. And the problem is Europe is losing day after day its values of solidarity. And it's not, of course, Italy also. Not only Italy, but also Italy. What the government did 1 week ago, it's a new step losing solidarity. But it's the same for France, exactly the same for Macron. When Corsica proposed to open the port,
yes, the harbour,
the harbors for Aquarius, the government answered no. That is a decision from the state, from the member state, not from the assembly, regional assembly, and they refused.
But at the same time, public opinion in France does seem to be against taking in more migrants.
I think public opinion is, of course, it's not nobody is on the same line. In fact, some of French people want to say yes. Come for refugees, and another part said we don't want.
Well,
so
in the
I
presidential election last year, we saw a huge proportion of people voting for the populist parties and policies of Marine Le Pen, which are very much based around immigration.
Of course, that is the reason.
There is real fear for many people.
It's not a question of country. It's a question of where you are in the political situation. Yes, I think it's the same in Germany. In Germany, you have people who want to say yes for refugees, and some other people want to say no.
Well, this has provoked a real crisis in Germany at the moment. Germany not even seeing solidarity within the two sides of its government alliance.
Well, with some exceptions. In Germany, there is a broad consensus that it must be possible to handle the whole situation of migrants and of refugees. And there is general consensus. The fact that the state must be able to put an order in it and to protect society. And sure, you can think we can afford to take some more refugees or we can't, but the differences are not so big as they were at the beginning, some years ago at the beginning of the crisis. At this moment, the problem is that between the CDU and the CSU, which in fact are sister parties, there are differences basically about the question, will we follow a European way of solution or will we take our own measures?
Well, something that seems to be clear from what I've heard from all around Europe in recent weeks, if not months, is that people everywhere are saying we want more solidarity, we want some solutions. Giuseppe Conte said that when he came to Paris a few days ago. But what are these solutions? From the Italian point of view, a change to the Dublin regulation about people being registered in the first point of arrival. I mentioned that's a huge priority.
But, we propose a revision of Dublin regulation almost 3 or 4 years ago. And it is very difficult because we know that member states are not agree in principle, and also the revision that has been proposed, it's not very convenient for us because the system of filter that they propose will have as what we will see is again that Italy will be the place where we will have the more migrants, and it is a case. Economical case also, because we spend more than 5 billion euro, and we receive just some 100 from European Union, but also is a case of human point of view, because these people are blocked in Italy and have no chance to be redistributed in
I have
Europe.
to precise that in this parliament, we voted for the revision of Dublin III. And we agree in this parliament. We have a majority in this parliament to reform Dublin, to reform with a European system. That is what I said.
What would that European system look like then? We have to talk about practicalities, don't we? Because Italy is geographically where it is. People are going to arrive in Italy.
The European system is to forget. When someone arrives in Italy, the responsibility is not Italian government responsibility. That is, I think, that is the solution, and that is what we voted.
Are we talking about
parliament.
a new quota system? Because the current quota system for reassigning refugees and migrants has been ignored by some countries. They've even been taken to court, and they're still saying they'll ignore it. Godelieve Quistad Rovol, a quota system doesn't seem to be viable.
Well, I have the impression that since it is not possible in the situation as it is now to really force states to accept refugees if they absolutely don't want, that we need another system. We need a system to help the states who have the burdens, as for example Italy, Greece, and also to help the states who accept the refugees. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we need to make programs and to try to eliminate the reasons for migration.
But that is a long time.
It is a long time, but we have to start. We have to start.
Well, the work has started, but the European Union has actually been criticised for some of the money that it's been spending in Africa, going to be increasing funding over the next few years. This has to be brief, unfortunately. Tiziana Beghin, do Italians have the patience to wait for that to happen in Africa?
I think that the citizens are not patient anymore, but we also have demonstrated, we have shown our solidarity in these last years. And also we think that we need to have some mid-term, short and mid-term measure and long-term measure also. It is the only solution. What we have seen now is that there were no solution and no really proposal.
No short, no mid-term, no long.
No, anything.
OK, well, it doesn't look like we found any solutions, but it's been a very interesting debate with you all. Thank you very much. All of your countries, of course, at the heart of this debate. Just before we end the programme, we're going to have our regular check-up on fact or fake news on the European Union. This week, a European Commissioner and a bit of a lost in translation moment. Take a listen.
It was a translation mistake and perhaps a journalist's rush to claim a scoop that triggered a diplomatic storm last month around the EU's budget commissioner, Günther Oettinger. In an interview broadcast on German television at the end of May, Oettinger expressed, in German, his doubts about the ability of the new Italian government to deviate from the EU's budget deficit rules, the Stability and Growth Pact. According to an English summary of the interview published on Twitter by the journalist, the EU Commissioner allegedly said that the markets and a darkened economic outlook will teach Italian voters not to vote for populist parties in the next elections. Those remarks immediately triggered a wave of outrage in Rome, but also in Brussels, where the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, told EU institutions to respect the voters, forcing Oettinger to present a public apology. However, the words used by the journalist on Twitter were not the ones Oettinger used in his interview. For instance, the German Commissioner never said that markets will teach voters a lesson, a mistake that the journalist later recognized himself, presenting his apologies on Twitter. However, His rectification did not seem to convince a majority of Twitter users who underlined that Oettinger's words were in essence not very different from the controversial sentence attributed to him.
And that brings us to the end of this week's programme. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks as well to my guests from Germany, Godelieve Quistad-Rowohl. Thank you to Tiziana Beghin from Italy and to French MEP Isabelle Thomas. Thanks all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again in just a few minutes' time after the news for part 2 of Talking Europe.